team. Today I sat down with the amazing Alli Webb, the founder of Drybar. For those of you that have been to some big cities, LA, New York, you know the Drybar, especially you ladies out there. And many of you husbands like me have dropped your wives off or girlfriends off at the Drybar to experience the Drybar. And it's an amazing concept, unique concept. And Alli Webb shares her amazing journey where she had really no plan, no goals, and she just followed her passion and went after it with everything she had and turned this thing into a monster, a coast-to-coast business that really changed the stylist game, where women could go and get their hair blown out before going out. And it was a simple concept, but she really, really, really took a simple concept and made it a staple brand and really created a new category and a new space. So she was an awesome interview. I love sitting down with her. Great energy, great passion, super excited, and she shared some amazing lessons. So sit back, enjoy. If you do, like I always say, give us a subscribe, give us a like, thumbs up, and sit back and enjoy this show. I promise you, for you aspiring entrepreneurs, you're going to love this one. See ya. Thanks for jumping on with me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
My wife's been a big fan of yours for a while, so we're excited to have you on.
Oh, thank you. That's nice to hear.
Yeah. So yeah, I keep it pretty conversational. Just I have a lot of entrepreneurs that follow the show. A lot of folks in finance, private equity as well. So I just wanted to talk to you about your entrepreneurial journey. It's been a rock star's journey so far. So yeah. I always like to ask, were you an entrepreneur from the time you were a kid, or was this something that just found you?
Well, my parents were, okay. So I grew up in that world, and, not really. I mean, I worked for my parents, and I worked, jobs. And then, I was all kind of all over the place and didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. And then I thought I wanted to work in fashion. So I moved to New York City and worked for Nicole Miller, who was a big designer then. And then my brother and I guess early on in my early 20s, my brother and I moved back to South Florida, where we grew up, and opened a couple of Nicole Miller boutiques. And, I was all of like 21, and I was, managing 2 stores between Miami and Boca. And I was like, this is not what I want to do. And so, yeah, I guess that, we owned our own business at that time, but it was really not my passion, and nor was it my brother's. And it was just kind of, we followed like the footsteps of our parents, because they owned clothing boutiques in South Florida. And that's just like, I don't know, the right thing to do. And I've always loved, fashion and all of that. So I thought that would be good, but it wasn't. But at that crossroads is when I was like, I think I want to go to beauty school, because that was the thing that I always really loved. But, I was like, my parents kind of looked their nose down on that when I was like, I want to go to cosmetology school. They were like, really? So, but I did. And, my brother was actually the biggest supporter of that. And so I went to cosmetology school, and I totally fell in love with it, and like met my people, and felt like this was where I was meant to be. And then I, proceeded to have like a pretty, lengthy career doing hair. I moved back to New York City. I worked for like this guy, John Zahag, who was like the best in the business, and he was the only person I wanted to work for. And he was the coolest, and it was such a great experience. And then, like a true, 20 something, I got bored of that. And I had a bunch of friends who were working in PR at Rogers & Cowan, which is a big PR firm in New York. And so I started doing that, so I jumped around a ton, and I never like thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I mean, Michael and I opened the Nicole Miller boutiques, and that was like my first foray, I guess, into being an entrepreneur. And my brother was always like starting businesses, and I think that he got that from my parents. And then I had a dog walking business for a little while.
Okay.
So yeah, I think the entrepreneurial spirit, has always been there. And I think, my parents instilled such a like, treat it like it's your own mentality, no matter where you are and what you're doing. And so that was like, that's just something that's been, ingrained in me since I was a kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's, and now when I decided, when I started my mobile business, which is what led to Drybar, it was like, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I thought I had hit the jackpot and being able to be a stay-at-home mom, and I loved it. But then I was like, I I need to do something for myself. So I started the mobile business. And, I guess I never really thought about it, but I think at that time I was like, I don't want to go work for somebody else. I think I liked working for myself. I mean, it's funny now, cause I mentor a lot of people and I talk, and anytime like a college student or a high school student, like once is doing a report on whatever, and they want to talk to me, and they always say, I want to be an entrepreneur. I want to be my own boss, and it's always so interesting to me. I was like, I never really thought like that, and I always tell them, well, you might be putting the cart before the horse. Like you got to go get experience in something, it's like, I've been doing hair for 20 something years, and I started at the very bottom. And when I worked for John's Hawk, who I mentioned in New York, like I was walking his 2 Greyhounds in Madison Avenue. I mean, which you can do the math. It's like pretty humbling. So it's like, those are steps. You don't just like poof, be an entrepreneur. I think I was made, it was like a lot of foundational stuff.
Yeah. How much did like early, even like frustration drive you, where you're like, hey, I don't want to do this. And then I'm in this. And now I don't want to, I have this feeling again. I don't want to do this. I'm going to go do this. Was that a part of it?
Yeah. My whole life, I mean, my whole life was very much like that. I think I'm a little bit like ADD, and I get bored of things very quickly. And I'm like, like squirrel, like what to do and what's exciting. And I really, as a 20-ish, even out of high school, I really followed that. Like, I'm just going to do what I want to do and what I enjoy doing. And I was lucky in the sense that my parents were really supportive, even they didn't to go to beauty, for be a professional player, and thought I was going to be. I was just like, I just jumped around so much. And I think it was out of like frustration, and it was out of like, just let me keep doing what makes me, feel happy and fulfilled. I don't know that I could have articulated that back then, but I think that was ultimately drove me, But
I think a lot of people struggle with that today because, listen, there's this whole, self-help goal world. And I coach a lot of young people too, and they're obsessed with timelines, and they're obsessed with the goals. And then they lose their passion and they end up doing something they hate. So I'd love to hear your thought on all of that too.
Well, yeah, I mean, I never had any of that. I mean, I'm so, I guess, non-traditional. I didn't have any goals. I didn't have any timelines. I mean, I didn't, I mean, I was there, and it was always this thing, like kind of this joke in our family that like everything just works out for Alli, which I didn't feel that way, but that was kind of the sentiment, because I just kind of I was very much like fly by the seat of my pants, and whatever happened. And even when we started Drybar, like there was no business plan. I had this idea. I literally was like, when I started my mobile business and I decided to charge $40 for my service, which is well below like market and whatever, I literally was like 220s will physically be easy for people to give me, because that was before the days of Femno and Uber and, like how payment's easy. It was like, what's going to be most convenient? And it was like 220s, like, you don't have to break it, and I think that it's just, I've always been like on like, figuring things out as I go. And so, even with Drybar, when we opened the first location, like we were like, maybe this is one location, maybe it's 2, but it wasn't like, okay, we're going to open this thing and then we're going to grow it to this, $100 million business. It was like not even on our radar. And I think that like, I've read books, and I can't remember who by it. I saw something recently, and it was like the subject was like, if you're going for something to make money versus following a passion, like it just doesn't work. And for me, it was like never about money. Nothing's ever been about money. I mean, the money has come, and it's amazing. And I mean, I don't want to say a perk, but like, it's like the sugar on top, I guess. But, for Drybar, like, we barely paid ourselves for years, because it was like, we kept putting the money back in the business, and it wasn't about making a lot of money, really. I mean, ultimately like that, I guess that changed a little, but that was never my driving passion, which is what I really try to like impart to other people, is like, none of that shit matters. Like the money will come, and all of that will come if you are actually doing something you love. And then of course, like it's so cliche, but it's like, it really doesn't feel like work when you are doing something that you really enjoy doing. I think it's like finding that thing you love doing is the big challenge,
Yeah.
like you really love doing, not because like your parents think you should or your husband thinks you should or whatever.
No, I love that. I think it's cool. It's cool the way you articulated it, because most people today, I come across again a lot of folks that they say entrepreneurship equals money, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
be passionate about what you
Sometimes.
do. Yeah, well, it leads
Yeah.
to it, but ultimately, like you said, if
Yeah.
that's your first goal, you can, who are you? I guess is the real question, right? At that point.
Yeah.
So
And of course it's like, at the end, the inclination to want to make money and be successful for sure. I don't think it can be or should be the driving force, and that's just, how I've, operate, how I always operated anyways.
yeah, no, I love it. For you, how did you come up with the original concept though? So I'm guessing, you were a stylist first, right? You cut hair and then you moved to this
Yeah.
concept where you're just, I guess, blowing and styling hair.
Yes. I know it's so funny. My
I'm not
guys talk
using the
about it
right
'cause it's funny.
terminology.
I'm sure
I have hair too,
you are blowouts, right? And what's fascinating really about it is like men, for the most part, kind of talk about it like you do. Like you're kind of like, what is this thing? And it's funny because my brother, who's my business partner, and he's also bald. When I first started talking to him about it, and he was like, but his wife Sarah, has very naturally straight hair. Like it grows out of her her head pin straight, which has always been like my dream. But luckily, that was my hair is like naturally very curly and frizzy. And
Okay.
his first, like, when I first started talking to him about it, he was like, I don't understand. Like Sarah doesn't need a blowout like every day. I'm like, well, first of all, like, your Jewish sister with the crazy curly hair that you grew up with, like, hello, it's like those girls. And that's really, by the way, what I thought the business would be, like girls like me who have naturally curly hair that's unruly and whatever. But turns out girls with straight hair, like my sister-in-law, want their hair, curly and full. Like, as women, no surprise here, like we want what we can't have.
Yeah.
And so, that's why the business ultimately worked so well. But yeah, I did cut hair for a long time, and then but blow drying hair, styling hair was like really my passion, and getting through a haircut and then styling someone's hair is like really when it came to life and really what I loved about it. So when I decided to start my mobile business, it was like, I just wanted to keep it simple and do what I love. I liked hair. I liked cutting, but I loved styling. And, which was also a big question mark for me when we were starting Drybar, like, are there enough stylists out there like me that want to do just blowouts? And, luckily there were, but that was a big question mark. And anyways, I started the mobile business, realized like there was a massive hole in the market. If when I didn't go to my clients and I was, again, only charging $40, where do you go? And the response was always like, I go begrudgingly to like the discount chain down the street where the pricing is variable and it's a bad experience, and like kids are getting their haircut, it's just crappy. And then, or like their cut and color salon where they're really getting overcharged and getting like upselled, and there just wasn't a good option, and that's where I was like, wow, this is really something here. And I, thought we could open one little shop and see what happens. And then, it quite literally blew up.
Yeah, no, it's well said. I was going to ask you, how, I'm guessing going back in time, here you are running around New York City, you're gaining a reputation for yourself and you have all these clients, and now you open a place. How did you start to grow outside of just being a single service practitioner or stylist and actually get people to trust some of the other people that you were bringing on? And how did you make that transition?
Well, I was actually in LA, and
Okay.
I had moved from New York to LA.
Okay.
When I was pregnant with my first son. And so I was really immersed in like the mommy community in LA. And that was really all I knew was like other moms. And, part of the reason I decided to start my mobile business was because I was like, I had spent like 3 or 4 years as a stay-at-home mom. And I was kind of like, oh my God, like I'm going to lose my mind. I have to get out of the house. I have to do something for myself. So I made all these, I knew lots of moms. I posted on this like mommy blog about my, mobile business. And I was, off to do that. And yeah, they definitely liked me. But when I started talking to them about this idea for Drybar, and instead of me coming to them, we built a place where they come to me and whoever, and, everybody like loved the idea. And, my vision for Drybar was, unlike traditional hair salons, was that there was a certain kind of through line with all the stylists. Like I didn't allow, even before we had a product line, like I didn't allow stylists to bring any of their own tools. I provided all the tools, the blow dryers, the brushes, the product, everything, because
Cool.
at that, again, before product, I just wanted everybody to have like the same experience. So, you were getting, it was a very unified, like visually, because I'm a very visual person. I didn't want like one person having a blue dryer, one person having like a red one, and this like mishmash that you see in most hair salons. I wanted like some sort of unity. And, and what ended up happening with Drybar, not initially, but first, because I had to learn so much about training our stylists, but there was this like, we created this lookbook, which was like very much in the bar theme, which Drybar is. So it was like a Mai Tai, which is like messy beachy, and like a Cosmo, lots of curls, Manhattan, super straight. And so it was like, and the girls that we used in our lookbooks as models were just like regular girls too, because I didn't want this like unattainable thing. Like, I didn't want like a picture of Giselle and people being like, I would like to look like that. It's like unrealistic. So, but the idea was like, you could sit in anybody's chair and basically get this style, no matter what stylist you're with. So the stylist knew and the clients knew. And so that was my vision, was like, you're coming to Drybar for a blowout. You're not going to like Sally for a blowout, Right. I mean, even though of course I want our stylists to have their own like kind of unique, flair and their own like, interpretation, which is great because you always want some variety. But I really wanted there to be this like, you're coming to Drybar for a Drybar blowout. You're not coming to Drybar for a blowout from like this particular stylist,
Yeah.
Which is like over the years, like, it's been an interesting dance with that, because we do want to promote our stylists and highlight the stylists. And, but ultimately I never wanted a client to get like so hooked on one stylist that if that stylist was there or available, they weren't going to come. The model was like, you can pop into Drybar anytime, anywhere, and you'll get a great blowout. And so that was the model, which for the most part worked.
Yeah. And you also, there was another transition there, which was going from mobile to people's homes and then getting them to now come to a brick and mortar facility or, studio.
Yeah. And what was interesting about that is, because I had the mobile business, and when we first started Drybar, we did this thing called Dry on the Fly, which was like sending our stylists out to people's homes because of that. But I'll tell you, people loved the experience of Drybar because, you've never been in, but like your wife knows, it's like you sit at a bar, you're watching a chick flick, the music's playing, the branding's cool. Like you get out of your house, you can be on your laptop, charge your phone. So we made the experience so appealing that you're like, I want to get out of my house for 45 minutes and do this, so many women, we open at 7 a.m. and so many women, are there at 7 a.m. on their laptops, like getting a jump on their day. It's like an hour of like getting ready while someone is doing your hair, and then you don't have to do your hair for the next 3 or 4 days. So, it also became a convenience for women. So that, I think that's why it really worked so well.
Where was your headspace at, even just signing that first lease? Were you nervous? Was it something that you were just straight up excited for and it took over the stress feeling of it all? Or were you just like, I'm doing it, let's go?
We were nervous. It was me and my brother, and that Brentwood lease, Brentwood was our first location, and that lease we had to personally guarantee, which is crazy. But I was like, at that point, I was like, there's really nothing they can take from me. So, have at it if it doesn't work. But that was, was definitely scary. And, my brother put up the lion's share of the money, and I had sweat equity. So, there was a part of me that was stressed that I was going to lose all this money for him. But then there was a part of me that's like, it's not my money, but I had a lot of, I didn't want that to happen, and Michael was very bullish about the idea, and he really believed in it. So he was willing to make the investment, not only, to help me, but because he thought this was a great idea, which, we had this long-standing joke that like, it's $250,000 that he thought he'd never see again, which was like, obviously not the case. Anyway, we were nervous and it was scary. And it was also in the middle of a recession. It was in 2010. So women were totally cutting back. The shopping center that we had decided to go in, which is I don't know how familiar you are with LA, but it's on Barrington in Brentwood, and it's like a thoroughfare. So I thought people are going to see the Drybar because we were right on the ground floor. But the shopping center itself was like dead. There was nobody in it. And I remember, you know, Michael and I were there all the time, like checking on construction. And Michael would be like, so nervous. He's like, Alli, nobody is here. Like, how is this going to work? You know? And I'm like, I'm telling you, they will come, you know? And that's really what happened. I mean, I feel like, I mean, humble brag here, we revived that shopping center. I mean, we had so many of the tenants that were in that shopping center after we opened, because we were bringing in like 70 to 100 women a day. I mean, it was crazy. And so, you know, the other tenants were coming to us and being like, you saved my business. You know, women are here again in this shopping center. And then we became, you know, not initially, but after a couple of years when landlords started to hear about us, that, you know, we became the like, my kid. We became like this darling in real estate. It's like everybody wanted us in their shopping centers because, you know, we brought all these women to these shopping centers. I mean, and that was like, for us, it was like daily use. You know, is there a place to get your nails done? Is there a place to shop, a place to grocery shop, have lunch? We always looked for that, like co-tenancy. And, you know, and we really were bringing in like women who spend money and shop, and we were bringing them to these shopping centers. So we became, you know, very in demand pretty quickly, which was really neat.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And for you, how did you stay focused during all of this? Because it sounds like up until that point, you were bouncing and doing this and doing that. And like you said, you loved a variety.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard. It was hard, but it was so exciting and so exhilarating and such a like, I mean, talk about like being on a rocket ship, you know, it was just like, it was so fun building the business, you know. I mean, I just started a new business, a jewelry company, and I'm in the very early days of building that. And it's so interesting to me how it's like reminiscent of those days where you're just like so like giddy and anxious and like, how do you know, and what works and what doesn't work, and then something works and it's so exciting. And, you know, and that's how it was with Drybar in the beginning. It was like, you know, the constant anticipation and like the fact that like we kept being really busy, you know, and we kept booking up, we kept meeting new stylists, and it was just this like trajectory that was so awesome that I think that kept me focused. I was like, you know, I guess the best way to equate it is like when you like fall in love, you know that feeling when you're like, you're just obsessed with this thing and you can't think about anything else. I think that was my focus, that because I was like, it was intoxicating, you know, it was so cool. And we were like, you know, we were getting so much press, and I was doing TV all the time, and that was super fun. It was like so much attention, and then I loved it. You know, I loved every second of it. So I think that's how I stayed focused.
No, it's awesome. And when you were building, because there's a lot of talk around this today too, as you're building a business, starting a company, you know, you have to work 24/7. You know, you're grinding. What was that? Was that your journey? Were you always on and always hammered?
I mean, I didn't leave the Brentwood location. We were open 7 days a week. We're still open 7 days a week, you know, when we can be open. And I was there for 6 months, 7 days a week, because I was so afraid. I mean, which isn't like, I'm not saying that because like people should do that. I shouldn't have done that, but I was so afraid to leave the store, you know, and also because we all underestimated what this was going to be. And I didn't hire a manager. Like I was going to run the store and like do hair and like, you know, pick up my kids from school. And I had this like idea of what this was going to be, which I was totally wrong. I mean, it was like bananas busy. And I was like, I have to be here all the time, so nothing goes wrong. You know, I mean, that was my, you know, it took me many years to like, you know, loosen my grip and allow other people to help. And especially as we grew. But yeah, that I would say like for the first 6 months, I was there 7 days a week, almost around the clock. And I remember, you know, we had like cameras in the stores that you could see that were totally like not weird. And I would watch them, you know, and I had the app on my phone so I could see what was going on. And I would drive the girls crazy because I would be texting like, what's going on over there? You know, and I did finally hire, after a few weeks, I hired a manager, and this amazing girl, Shannon, who I still adore. And, you know, she was great and did such a great job, but you know, it was like, it really took me a while to like get comfortable leaving it with her. You know, because it was just my baby, and it was so good, and people loved it so much that I was just so nervous about someone like fucking it up. And so I was I'm back.
So you were all, I
But,
mean, you were all in on it.
I think it served me well.
Yeah, I'd say. And then
Yeah. Yeah.
when you go to
And
build the brand into, multiple locations and moving, to the East Coast as well. I mean, that had to be pretty scary too.
yeah, I mean, it was like, whenever we opened a new store, inevitably it would be, and it was like always booked, and I was always scared. I was always like, are they going to come? Are they going to come? And
Yeah.
I would be watching the books the night before to see how like we were booked up. And, I would say for the first like 30 or 40 shops, I really had, maybe even more, I really had that like nerves of like, shit, no one's going to come. It's just like, how are people going to come? And we did a good job with marketing and PR. I had worked in PR, my brother worked in PR, so we knew how to kind of maneuver around that. And we were getting plenty of attention, but it was still like, getting people to come in and get blowouts was like, was that going to happen? At
Yeah.
every location, I got more and more nervous that, are they going to show up? So it was, yeah, for a long, and I went to like the first 50 openings, and then I had to, I mean, that took us into like, I don't know, like 5 years or something. So then I had to like, you can imagine like the burnout, and, I was
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah, it's real. A lot of the, the entrepreneurs and CEOs that I work with, founding CEOs, their biggest fear is losing it all. That's like a major
Yeah.
sense of
Oh,
their,
for sure. My brother used to always say, like, this is ours to lose. Like, we captured lightning in a bottle. It's ours. It's basically our, he would say it's ours to fuck up,
Yeah.
because it was like, and that's why, Michael was like very bullish about us hiring, like real like people who really knew how to grow business, because it was about, I think we were about 11 stores in when we brought in private equity, which I didn't want to do. I met Michael, found this amazing woman she had been at Pinkberry, and before that, like Taco Bell. So like really had experience growing and scaling an organization, a large organization. And I mean, her salary was like, I was like, what? I didn't even know people got paid that much money. I mean, it was nowhere near like what we were taking. And I was like, holy shit, like we can't hire her. And Michael was like, we have to, he's like, we need somebody who knows what they're doing, because we will fuck this up because we don't know how, and that was such an interesting reality to me, because I was like, we're not going to fuck it up. We know what we're doing. And he's like, Alli, we are busting at the seams. And we hired a couple people and whatever, but and my brother was the CEO for a while, but even, my brother's like, has no ego. And he was like, I'm okay at this, but when we get to like at a scale, which we got, like, I've never done it before, and I don't want to mess this thing up,
Yeah.
And so, he really like helped me see the light on that. And then because we had this woman who became the president, then we were able to, it was also how we were able to get the attention of a lot of big private equity firms who probably never would have. I mean, of course, that's this conversation Michael and I had too. He's like, these guys would never have invested in us if we didn't have somebody who actually knew how to run the company.
Yeah.
And so, Michael and I were visionaries, and we knew how we wanted it to be. And I knew how, very, very obsessive about the in-shop experience and customer service and all of that. But like the back end stuff, like getting people paid and hired, and that stuff is like, whoa, I didn't want to do that. And Michael was really doing all of that. But once we hired somebody to help us, and she ultimately hired more people, then we became like a real, like, as I used to say, big girl company.
Well, it's nice that your brothers, you guys are a great partnership, and that he's so open. A lot of people, they're control freaks, and they can't even get to that point of being that open.
And that's how I was. Yeah. I mean, he really was like, and it was like, we had so many conversations about like, also with private equities, you get diluted and all of that. And so I was like, we had a lot of conversations about, owning a smaller piece, because it was just like all very hard for me as a new entrepreneur of this level to digest that. Like, I don't want to give up any of my equity, because, just because you're like, and I am still envious of people who don't have to give up a lot of equity and just like, end up selling their company for $300 million and they owned it outright. And you're like, holy shit, because we ended up raising so much money. I mean, we raised over like 75 million,
wow.
When all was said and done. And we had to do that to grow quickly. And frankly, I think we would have been in trouble had we not, because we did get so much competitors and so
Yeah.
much, so many people trying to do what we did. I mean, I don't think anybody did it as well, but it was still happening. So we had to move really fast. So
Yeah, it's super cool.
yeah,
You
it's
were
a good
I
point
mean,
for
you
sure.
guys, you were the first ones and you were the category leader.
Yeah.
Even I know the brand. I mean, I grew up in New York, so I've seen it
Yeah.
quite a bit, and I've made many drop-offs to that location. Um, it's an awesome story. I wanted to ask you too, what is it that motivates you? What motivates you?
Gosh, I don't know. It changes, over time. And, like I was saying before, like initially with Drybar, it was like, um, the anticipation, the build that I really loved, building a business, getting the business. And even when I slightly refer to my dog walking business back in the day, I didn't actually love doing that, but I loved getting the business and I loved like putting it out there and then getting the business. It's so similar now with my jewelry company, Beckett and Quill. I love jewelry. And so I love the business, but it's so exciting when we get, I watch the orders come in like a hawk,
Yeah.
and we're still so small that I can. And that, knowing that, first of all, people love the product, the marketing things that we're doing, the outreach we're doing, all these levers we're pulling, like they're working. And like, that's so fun and exciting to me. So, I think it's the build that motivates me, that I like building something, and I'm in a really awesome place. I mean, I'm very lucky that I'm in this place where, I made a relatively small investment to get this, Beckett and Quill off the ground. And so I don't have the kind of stress I had with Drybar when it was like everything was on the line. So this is more of a passion project, which is a really fun place to be, because I really want this business to grow and get bigger. And it's already proven to be twice as big as it was when Meredith, my business partner, was running it on her own. So yeah, it's really exciting. And I think I really enjoy this process. And I was at the point where I was like, we have other businesses. We have Squeeze, our massage concept, which
Yeah.
is same founding team as Drybar. And it's a brick and mortar, but it's all app based. So you book and pay and tip on the app. And it's a brilliant concept and it's been doing phenomenally well. But, I'm an advisor. I'm not running it in the day to day. And then we have a couple other business that will launch this coming year. But I'm more like advisor board member level of those, but Beckett and Quill is like my little passion project and it's super fun, and so I was at a point in my life where I need something else that I can like and build. And then I have other projects. I'm writing a book, like a memoir that's like my whole story. And then I have a TV show there's all sorts of like fun things
Yeah.
going on. So I think being busy is very motivating for me. I like having my hands in a lot of different things. I like being busy and,
Yeah. And
yeah,
how are, and are
so.
you, and you're able to focus like that as well. Cause I believe that. I believe some people need a lot going on and that makes them better.
Yeah, I think so. I like, because I've gone through phases. Obviously, like I was ridiculously so busy and crazy with Drybar for so many years. And I was also traveling like a maniac for so many
Mm.
years. I mean, even once I wasn't going to every single store opening, then we had a product line. And so I was going, to Sephora and Nordstrom and, and Ulta, like our retailers for doing conferences. And I speak at a lot of events and I was like always on a plane. And I mean, when the pandemic hit, it was like a little bit of a blessing in disguise for me that I was like, oh my God, I can stay home for a
Yeah.
couple of months. I mean, not get back out, but it was a nice break for me because I'm always on a plane. And now it's like, I do enjoy the being busy, having like multiple things going on. I think I do better, to your point, with like lots of hats in the air,
Yeah.
plates in the air.
Yeah. And for you, had it in terms of your own daily routine, your own habits, what do you feel are some of your most important habits and routines and things that you do that make you who you are?
It's definitely changed over time. And I think that's kind of happens as you grow up. And also for me, I went through a divorce a couple of years ago, which wasn't I was like a pretty amicable divorce for the most part, but Cam is my business partner. And so that was presented a lot of challenges, Cam and my brother. And that was, we went through really tough time during that. We were married for 16 years. So it was such a like life change that really like threw me that I didn't expect. And during that time, I started doing a lot of transcendental meditation, and I became really obsessed with that. Like 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the afternoon, religiously. And that was also when things were really changing for me with Drybar, when I wasn't in like the day-to-day operations the way I was, and so I had more time. And now I had shared this office with my ex and the creative team, and now that was gone, and it was just like a crazy, like not only like divorce, but like kind of soul searching, like who am I now? What's my purpose and all of that. So, it put me into a bit of a depression. And then I started doing transcendental meditation to really help get through that. And that became like a pretty regular practice for me, and journaling and like that kind of stuff. And now, I'm newly engaged, a great relationship and super happy, and now it's like, to keep me I'm pretty religious about doing yoga every morning before my day starts. I usually go on like 3 walks a day and like listen to like a news podcast and some other podcasts or just music, and, walk my dogs. Like, I'm sitting outside right now on my back porch. I really love being outside. And so, I think it's like keeping moving and active. And I think as we get older, I mean, also it's like, it's very unglamorous, but it's like, I feel like my body physically needs to move a lot during the day for me to feel my best. So that, and I think for my brain to be most alert. So it's like yoga and walking are like really big parts of my day.
Cool. Yeah, no, it's important. As you get older, sometimes you stop moving, or many people stop moving and they lock up and they get old very quick.
Body. Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I can't tell you how many executives that I work with, they're 60, 70 years old and they've never stopped, and they're frozen. They can't move. They can't, they're overweight, unhealthy.
I do not like sitting. Yeah. I don't like sitting all day. I like to be up and about for sure.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. Alli, I have one more question for you. So I call it the Becoming a Champion show. I feel like we're all on a journey to become our champion self. What would you say? What does the word champion mean to you?
It's funny. I mean, I don't know if you've seen this, but I just finished watching the tennis documentary. Have you seen that?
What was it?
Tiger Woods, the documentary.
Oh, I watched parts of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I mean, that's just the first thing that came to mind, because you just kind of watch the rise and fall and then the rise again. And you're just like, this guy, it's such a complicated story, and it's such an amazing and sad and beautiful and all that, and I think it's like, when I think about like a champion, I think my first thought is like sports. The word champion, it reminds me of like Wheaties boxes, and because I ate Wheaties when I was a kid. I mean, I think that it's like, I think it's somebody who like, works their ass off and is relentless to achieve a goal, and it's like, again, it brings up a sports analogy for me, like, and it's funny because I mentioned I wanted to be a professional tennis player when I was a kid. I was really into it. I went to Nick Bollettieri for many years. Like I trained Chris Everett's sister taught me how to play tennis. I played with Chris Everett. Like Andre Agassi was training where I was like, I wanted that.
Yeah.
But I realized I wasn't good enough. And I realized I didn't have the perseverance to do it. I didn't feel like I had mental game, a lot of things, but like, I think to be a tennis champion, you have to it is like, it can be your only focus. And I wasn't willing for that to be my only focus, and so I was never going to be a tennis star, pro, champion, whatever, and I think, I found my thing, but I think it is like a relentless pursuit of excellence. Really. Yeah. It sounds like a Nike ad. I think that is really what it is,
I love that, because, you became, so focused on what it is that you did that you actually became a champion at that. So maybe not on the tennis court, but in the business game.
Yeah, for sure.
So no, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you hanging with me today. I enjoyed it.
Fun.
So
me too.
I appreciate that you're open, and I think a lot of people are going to relate to you being real. I talk about that a lot. You have to be real. Some people think, I'm now this and I have to become that. But who you are shows through.
Yeah, I feel like it's so to like it's like the good, bad, and ugly. It all, it's like I really hate presenting this like one, I think a lot of people look at me and my life and think like it's all like, rainbows and sunshine. It's just not, it's almost never like that. So I like to dispel that. I think it makes people feel like, okay,
Yeah.
she didn't go to college and she didn't have a business degree and she did it.
So can
I can
I.
do it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
you give people a lot of hope, and that's really self-belief is so important.
it's so
Uh,
true.
you
It's so
know,
true. And really anybody can do it if you put your mind to it.
yeah. No, it's super,
So,
super, super cool. And where'd you grow up in Florida? I'm in
yeah.
Jupiter now myself.
Oh, Boca Raton.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. Right
My
down the road.
dad's still in Boynton Beach.
Yeah.
So
My parents are over there.
yeah. Or are they?
Yeah.
Everybody's
Yeah.
parents
Everyone
are.
ends up there, right? No, it's awesome. And
Yeah. I mean, I it's a great place to grow up.
I'd say it's
Sorry. Go
beautiful. 80 degrees and sunny almost every day. You can't beat it. Summer's a little bit tough though.
I know. See, that's the thing. The humidity, it's like in my hair. I
Yeah.
really love California. I mean, I live in LA and I'm like, the weather, you really can't beat the weather here. I could deal with it being a little bit warmer than it is.
Yeah.
Um, but
But at
I'm sure
least you
most
get to
people
wear a
don't agree with
sweat. You
that.
get to wear a sweatshirt though. I mean, here it's so warm that we
I
don't
know.
even get to wear sweatshirts.
I know. I like a little layering, so it's good.
Exactly. It's good for the look, right?
Yes, for sure.
Awesome. Cool. Allie, thanks so much. And I'll be cheering you on. That's what us coaches do.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
thank
You.
you. And
Appreciate it.
congrats on your engagement.
Thank you. Thanks so
Cool.
much.
You see, wasn't I right? How about her energy? Fired up. Alli Webb's energy, fired up, excited. You could still see the passion that she has for her brand, Drybar. And we could all just only hope that we have that much passion and excitement for what we do every single day. I love how she shared that she was going house to house, blow drying women's hair. And then she took a gamble. She signed the big lease and she said, hey, it's my brother's money, which I didn't want him to lose. But you know what? If he did, he did. But in her heart, she knew that she wasn't. She wasn't going to lose that money. And her and her brother came together and formed a great partnership and truly built an amazing brand in Drybar. And now she's off to bigger and better things and starting her jewelry brand. And she's involved with Squeeze massage brand. And it's, she turned out to be that entrepreneur that she never thought of herself as, but she became that. And she just kept working towards that passion. And she worked towards her calling and she kept following it and following it and following it. And it kept opening up new paths. And you see, early in her career, she was distracted and doing different things and she couldn't focus. And then all of a sudden, she fell in love with that one thing that grabbed her. And she kept going deeper and deeper and deeper towards it. And that's what we have to remember, that sometimes there is no perfect plan. We just have to keep working and following our passion. The doors will open. The magic will happen. Just stay excited. Stay passionate. And when you lose that excitement and you lose that passion, try something else. This is Coach Dana Cavalea with the Becoming a Champion show. And I hope you enjoyed today's episode with Alli Webb. Super, super episode. I loved it. And if you're looking for more episodes, stay tuned. We'll be back next week. And if you like today's episode, give it a like for us, give it a subscribe, and share with your friends or anybody else that's on an entrepreneurial journey or looking for inspiration, and help us build this team of champions. This is Dana Cavalea with the Becoming a Champion show, and I will see you.